For the first time in its 114-year history, the Boy Scouts will now be making a name change. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Zinni.
And hi, everyone. I'm Erin Connolly. The organization is rebranding to Scouting America. The change follows years of controversy that includes bankruptcy and multiple sexual abuse claims.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Hector Molina is live in Milford right now after talking with a representative from one of our local chapters. Hector?
Well, the Boy Scouts of America says they're rebranding to Scouting America in an effort to be more inclusive. Now, this name change comes after some turmoil for the organization. Last year, the Boy Scouts of America's $2.4 billion bankruptcy reorganization plan took effect, allowing the organization to stay afloat while compensating more than 80,000 men who say they were sexually abused while scouting. Now, the name change isn't the organization's first effort to be more inclusive. This announcement comes 5 years after the organization began including girls in scout programs. The organization says it has more than 176,000 girls in their programs nationwide. Here in Connecticut, the Yankee Council, the state's local chapter, says of the 14,000 young people in the program, 21% are girls. Now, we spoke with a spokesperson for the local chapter and state lawmakers with close affiliations to the Scouts about how the name change will impact the organization's future.
Our mission really remains the same. The Scout Oath and Scout Law still guide what we do. We're on a journey to evolve the scouting program. We've been on that journey for a number of years. This will certainly lead to more evolutions of scouting, but it's all for the betterment of the young people in our program.
Scouting is pretty strong in Connecticut, and over 1,000 young ladies became Eagle Scouts in the last year, and it's time that the organization recognize that we evolve. And there's still boys troops and there's girls troops, so the fundamental program hasn't changed.
This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. Just what everybody asked for, right? The Boy Scouts of America has officially changed their name so they could be more inclusive, now calling themselves Scouting America, right? And this is the way that we're headed. There's no more men and women. There's no more genders. This is what global communism looks like for anybody out there that's wondering. And of course, it's very fitting that the Boy Scouts of America do the bidding for the global government, because the Boy Scouts of America, if you don't know, is a Freemasonic organization. They just kind of try to pretend like they're not, but they are. And I'll show you how they're connected in a moment. But let's start by looking at the logo for the Boy Scouts of America. Because again, everybody was clamoring. Everyone was saying, it's not fair that girls can't join the Boy Scouts. There's this thing called Girl Scouts, right? It's not fair that the Girl Scouts can't join the Boy Scouts and the Boy Scouts can't join the Girl Scouts. So why not just call it the Scouting America organization? And if anybody wants to join, even if they identify as a Firefly, they could join the organization. That makes everybody happy, right? But nobody realizes what's happening around us because they don't understand Marxism. They don't understand what this global cabal is really trying to accomplish. So this is the logo for the Boy Scouts. You could see lots of symbolism there. That would be the Phoenix Rising that you're seeing, of course, because that's one of the mottos of the New World Order. Order out of chaos. They will destroy everything and then rise from the ashes after they destroy it. And you can see even the pentagrams right next to the Phoenix Rising. And that symbol in the background is called the Fleur de Lis. And you may have seen it before. You may say, hey, that looks a little familiar. Is that the logo of the football team, the New Orleans Saints? Well, it's a Masonic symbol, of course, used in Freemasonry. I've covered in the past. We've seen even Brad Pitt openly flaunt his Masonic ring out in the open. You could see some of the logos and the imagery used in Freemason with the Fleur de Lis, where they actually even use the compass behind it in the backdrop. You could see a lot of the Masonic rings, etc., like the one Brad Pitt is wearing, that have that logo, that emblem right on there. And of course, if people out there don't seem to understand that all of these organizations really are run through Freemasonry. So the Boy Scouts were started by two men, Daniel Carter Beard, who in fact was a Freemason. He's one of the founders of the Boy Scouts. So a founder of the Boy Scouts happened to be a Freemason. I'm sure that's a coinky-dink, right? And then the other one is Robert Baden-Powell, who in some circles they try to claim that he's not a Freemason or that they don't have enough information. But we know for a fact that he is a Freemason because a lot of the Masonic lodges around the world are named after him. So why in the world would they name a Masonic lodge after somebody who is not a Freemason? Well, they wouldn't. So there are 6 Masonic lodges named after Baden-Powell, all in Australia, but they were formed by Scouts, not by Baden-Powell. Baden-Powell Lodge number 505 has published a booklet entitled Freemasonry and the Scout Movement. They can be reached through the United Grand Lodge of Queensland. And of course, you can take a look at the pictures of these guys. I mean, you should be pretty creeped out because I'm sure you probably look and you say, wow, maybe they were just really great guys that wanted to do something with children and hang out with children, because it's normal for 50 and 60-year-old men to want to take their spare time on the weekends to hang out with 10-year-olds that aren't their own kids, right? What are we supposed to believe, that they weren't able to have kids? Now, if you don't understand how it works, Freemasons groom young children, okay? You could even see some of the propaganda on their own website, right? Freemasonry and the Boy Scouts of America working together for America's youth. Character building, service to country, service to others, service to self. And that's really what it's about, service to self, because that's what these organizations preach, self-empowerment. A lot of the stuff that you see going on in the world all stems from the Masonic teachings. They actually believe that they are gods among us. They are their own gods. That's what eventually they find out, that Lucifer reveals to them. So what they do is they groom young children to eventually become Freemasons. You can see the connections with some of the photos on the screen of the Boy Scouts of America, just hanging out at the Masonic lodges, nothing to be creeped out here, grown men wearing those little bibs that they like to wear. And of course, you could see the how similar those bibs look to the Google Gmail logo as well, because that's not a coincidence either. Of course, you could see some other Freemasonic propaganda of the connection between the Boy Scouts and Freemasonry. And the Boy Scouts were founded in 1910, the Boy Scouts of America, whereas the DeMolay was founded in 1919. And it's important to note because the DeMolay is more of a secret fraternal order where the Boy Scouts are something like your own kid can go and sign up for the Boy Scouts. Some of you probably were in Boy Scouts or had kids in Boy Scouts. It doesn't mean that you're a Freemason and you're connected to Satanism, etc. If you were a Boy Scout, a lot of kids joined Boy Scouts. They wanted to learn how to tie knots and do whatever else goes on in Boy Scouts. That's perfectly innocent. But what most parents don't know is that those men who were training inside the Boy Scouts were likely, almost 100% guaranteed, to be Freemasons. And they were grooming your children to eventually recruit them into Freemasonry. But openly, they did start the DeMolay in 1919 as a way to recruit young boys into Freemasonry. So the difference is, in Boy Scouts, they weren't openly teaching the Freemasonic teachings. In DeMolay, they are and were. Okay, the same thing with the girls out there. The Rainbow Girls and the Job's Daughters are the Freemasonic Eastern Star organizations for children. So these grown-ups recruit them. They recruit them into their organizations. They do a lot of what they call character building, which is just grooming. They see if they're obedient, and then they use terms like you saw in the pamphlet where they talk about character building and service to country. It's service to the brotherhood. There is no service to country. Freemasonry in itself is treasonous, okay? It shouldn't be allowed to exist. You want to stop the world problems? Put an end to Freemasonry, okay? It's how they infiltrate your local government. That's how they infiltrate your local school systems. It's all through Freemasonry. They pretend that they're there to help, to be charitable. They're all nice people. They all look like your grandpa. Yeah, but you don't really know what these people are reading behind closed doors. And I've showed that in a lot of the videos that I put up over the years where you could actually watch the Masonic rituals. And you'll say to yourself, well, this doesn't look like just a normal fraternity when we got guys in their tighty whities with skid marks, having swords held up to their throats, lying in coffins and taking an oath that says, well, if you ever betray the brotherhood, we'll kill you, right? That doesn't sound like just a fraternity. It sounds like treason, because most of these people ended up infiltrating Congress, if not all of the people. And of course, we've seen the long array of presidents who have gone through Freemasonry, even Truman, and you name them. And they openly have talked about their highest regard, the highest honor they ever had was being in Freemasonry, above actually being a president. Even Gerald Ford, you could see here in some of the photos, who's a Freemason, even was a Boy Scout as well. And Gerald Ford mentioned in a lot. Gerald Ford never gets talked about anymore. But if you actually go through a lot of the stuff with the Franklin cover-up, these are things on the website, and a lot of these other, what we would call like the current story going on with that guy named Jeffrey and that island that he has. Well, Gerald Ford's one of the sickest ones out there. I mean, lots of stuff mentioned in Kathy O'Brien's book, There's lots of documentation to Gerald Ford's involvement. That's actually how he really even got into politics, was he was first involved in all of those acts with children. And of course, he's a Boy Scout because he became he was a Boy Scout, then he became an Eagle Scout, whatever they call it. And of course, he started grooming children. So back to the main story here. Does it surprise anybody that the Boy Scouts of America are changing their name to be more inclusive? Of course not. Because remember, all of these, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Boy Scouts, these are all Masonic organizations who are actually doing what they're told to do. They might pretend like, well, if they had no choice, the Boy Scouts, to become more inclusive. They had to become more inclusive because people were suing them. That's not true at all. And the same with the police. They know that the police have to be disbanded in this new AI governance that they're trying to, destroy our infrastructure to put in place. There is no police force. Now, the red states might have the police force in the beginning, where the blue states will just be under, complete surveillance state. That might be the illusion that they start with. But ultimately, the police out there know exactly what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean every single police officer knows what they're doing, but the police in general know what they're doing. They're taking orders, right? So the Boy Scouts of America announced Tuesday they will change their name to Scouting America starting in February to emphasize its commitment to inclusion. And again, all we hear is this word inclusion, and nobody realizes this, that there's nothing in communism, okay? Everything is equal enslavement. That's what it is. It's not equality where it's like, oh, well, me and you are equal now, as if we're not equal already, okay? It's an equal enslavement, where the chosen ones rule and reign over us and live freely and do as they please while we're all enslaved underneath them, okay? They tell these kids out there that communism is about equality, and it's not. It's very easy to see, but they don't want to believe any of that stuff because their ears are being tickled by these politicians who are obviously manipulating them and deceiving them. So they say they're emphasizing inclusion, and that's why we keep hearing the word. The youth organization said the new name is meant to help everyone, including boys and girls, feel welcome. The change will go into effect February 8th, 2025. While this may be a surprise to some of you, for us, this is a straightforward evolution and the next natural step in ensuring all American youth feel welcome and recognized in an organization that is meant to serve all Americans. Well, there was a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout, right? It made perfect sense. If you were a girl, you join the girls. If you're a boy, you join the boy. But this, again, they're duping people into this. And the youth out there is too dumb to realize what's happening. And that's why they're doing it right now. They wouldn't be doing this if the youth out there had a clue. They don't have the slightest clue. And that's because they're being raised by their technology and the institution. And they're really, when I say they're being raised by their technology, it means they're being raised by the state. Okay, this is in communist-controlled countries like China, it's state-run media. Okay, in America, it's state-run media, which is why you see the silencing of anybody out there that isn't a part of state-run media, but they allow the alt-right media to continue to talk because it's state-run media as well. So they say the rebranding won't change the organization's mission of preparing young people over their lives to make ethical and moral choices by instilling the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. America's values are scouting, guys. And again, this ties into Masonic law and the Masonic Oath. It's preparing, it's grooming them. They start with groups like this while maybe they're learning how to tie their shoes and tie knots in the Boy Scouts. Ultimately, the oaths and the secrecy and all these other things start to come out as they get older and older and they go into Freemasonry and are recruited into Freemasonry, most specifically, because that's what ends up happening. And again, the DMLA is really the organization that recruits Masons, but if a regular person can join the Boy Scouts, you could go sign up for the Boy Scouts now, today, if you wanted to, and you were a kid, okay? You couldn't join these other secret groups like the DMLAs or the Freemasonry without recommendations, without knowing somebody. So that's a big difference because they like to grab people who they look at as somebody who might be useful to them in the future, someone they can manipulate and mold like a groomer would do. So they see a kid who signs up, he's very studious in the Boy Scouts, the Eagle Scout or the master leader of the scout troop, sees that he's there every day, he's on time, he's asking questions, they grow a relationship, and then they recruit them. That's how it works. So this is just continued, nonsense that we see going on. And what's really scary about it isn't just the notion of what this is. It's the fact that we're allowing it to happen. The more desensitized people do and the less pushback there is, right? So the more that these stories come out, oh, now this is inclusive, that's inclusive, and then it just goes along with it. That's the same thing that's happening with censorship, which is why I keep trying to fight it. Okay, more important people just go, oh, I can't talk there. I won't go back. They won't let me speak there. It's over with. I'll move on. That's what they want you to do. That's how they force compliance on you. Right? It's the same with this crap. Company after company, oh, we're going to be inclusive. Huh? What does that even mean? Oh, it just means that there's no rules anymore. Anybody could join anything. Anybody could go. And everyone just goes, all right, I mean, they're being more inclusive because of the woke movement. They feel threatened, so they have to do this instead of groups pushing back. Now, the Boy Scouts would never push back on this because this is part of Masonic doctrine. This is what they want. The communist government, is run by Freemasons. So they're on board with this. They may pretend that they're patriots and they love their country, but that's not true at all. Their oath is to their fellowship, their brotherhood, and they'll never betray that oath. Ever, under any circumstance. So that's the story that's out there. Nobody should really be surprised about it. It's unbelievable that, they get away with these things out in the open and that people haven't revolted against this. And by revolting against it, they hear that word. Everyone's like, oh, it means he's trying to do an uprising, wink, wink, or they're trying to do January 6th. Or how about we just stop participating in this? Just shut it all down. Break free from it. Right? That's the one thing they don't want to do, which is why they are so hell-bent on you staying in the left-right divide. That's why the alt-right media is so important to them. They're more important to them than the liberal media, because the alt-right media is what keeps conservatives trapped, right? It's just as important. They pretend like, oh, Fox News is the worst, right? They knew that Fox News is going to be more popular than liberal media because they know that pushing insanity isn't really going to spread unless it's just a dumbed-down people. So they're hurting the conservative people with this stuff. And again, they're not fighting back against stuff like this because they're trapped inside of that left-right paradigm. I thank everybody for being here. Just remember that all these organizations that you think are good and clean and, it's America, it's tradition, because I'm sure a lot of conservatives are like, yeah, the Boy Scouts, an American tradition. Okay, they're all of them have the hand of Freemasonry is embedded in all of them. Okay, all of them. Don't forget that. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you as always and your families.